Allahu, 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 Allah, Allahu, 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 Allah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. We discussed the three foundations which the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam he established once he moved to Medina. And those are, number one, building the Masjid and making it the center for everything. It is the school, the university, the welfare office, the Masjid was everything. Number two, the Prophet ﷺ established the ukhuwah, the brotherhood between the Muslims who were strangers before that, but now they were joined by the bond of Islam. And number three, he ﷺ, he wrote and he co-signed the treaties and the covenants and the peace agreements, three of them. One, between the Muslims. The second one was between the Muslims and the Jews of Medina. And the third one was between the Muslims and the non-Muslim Arabs, meaning the Arabs of Medina who had not yet accepted Islam, which we said were very few compared to the Muslims, because most of the people of Medina, they had accepted Islam. So these were the three things which the Prophet ﷺ he started to do right away in Medina. Other than, of course, the teachings, the daily teaching and the tarbiyah, the cultivation, the nurturing, which the Prophet ﷺ he nurtured with the Muslims to make them better individuals. Because a society can only be a good society if it's made up of good individuals. A society at the end of the day is just a group of individuals. If those individuals are good, or majority of them are good, then we have a good society. If the majority of them are bad, you have a bad society. So you work on the individual, and that's how you bring reform, change in Islam. You change the individual. That's how it works Islamically. Now, I just want to read, even though we summarized last night, the short agreement which the Prophet ﷺ he did with the non-Muslim Arabs, those who still were upon idol worship, or they did not want to accept Islam yet. It was very short, 2 or 3 points. Point number one, it said, لا يجير مشرك مالا لقريش ولا نفسا ولا يحول دونه على مؤمن. The non-believing Arab of Medina shall not give protection to the Quraish of Makkah, who are the enemies of Islam, who had just tortured, abused, killed the Muslims and kicked them out of Makkah. So you, Arabs of Medina, you cannot help them, whether in person or in wealth. And if a Muslim of Medina was to attack someone of the Quraysh, you cannot protect him. That was the first agreement. And if you remember, the Prophet ﷺ made a similar agreement with the Jews. Number two, لا تجار قريش ولا من نصرها. So they cannot give protection to Quraysh or any of the allies of Quraysh. Those who allied with the Quraysh to fight the Muslims, you have to agree with us that you are not going to protect them. And number three, لقريش وحلفائها حق الصلح إذا طلبوه إلا من حارب منهم الإسلام. We agree that the Quraysh and its allies, they have the right to enter into a peace treaty with us. And this is the beauty of Islam. These are the enemies of Islam. They killed so many Muslims. They tortured them, persecuted them, abused them, violated their rights, took their properties. Yet the door is open. If they want to sign a peace treaty, then we are open to that. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَإِن جَنَحُوا لِلسَّلْمِ فَاجْنَحْ لَهَا وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. If they want to come back to peace, having peace, you should go into peace and put your dependence and reliance on Allah. Like we said yesterday, as we're going to see now, when the fighting starts, Islam is not about the shedding of the blood or the fighting itself, no. In fact, Islam prospers and grows with security and peace. We said in Makkah, it was around 100 Muslims, that's all. But now, as we're going to see, they have a peaceful land where they can build, they can live. You'll see how they become 10,000-fold. So this was the short agreement the Prophet ﷺ, he signed or co-signed with the mushrikun, the disbelieving Arabs. With that said, if you remember guys, in the beginning of this Seerah series, we said we are not going to be doing the typical Seerah classes, which people come, they tell the story, they go home. No. Number one, we're going to emphasize on learning from the Seerah, because that's the fruit, that's the goal. And number two, we're not just going to discuss Hijrah, then the Prophet ﷺ fought this battle and then he died. No. There were great events which happened, because the Seerah is all of Islam. That's the life of the Prophet ﷺ. So there are some events which normally they're not put in the Seerah, but we are going to discuss them. Like we discussed a few events already, like the Prophet ﷺ marrying Sauda bint Zam'a after Khadija died. You won't find that usually in the books of Seerah. You won't find that. Okay? So we are in the first year. This is the first year, the first month. This is the third month or fourth month after Hijrah. So this is called the first year of Hijrah. Okay? Year number 1. Today we are in year number 1439. We are in 1439, the month of Rajab, which we are about to finish actually. Did we finish Rajab? We are about to finish Rajab. We are about to go to Sha'ban, then we have 1 month to Ramadan. Tayyib?
21st.
Yes. Today is the 21st of Rajab. So we are in the first year. So some of the events which happened in the first year of Hijrah, Tashri'ul Adhan. Tashri'ul Adhan. The Adhan being commissioned or being legislated. You know the Adhan, right? Soon, in an hour and 2 hours, we're going to hear the Adhan of Asr. The call to prayer. We saw how the prayer itself was institutionalized during the Isra al-Mi'raj. The 10th year. All we said is after. And we mentioned, if you remember, or maybe we didn't mention, but I'm sure we mentioned, another point about the Salah we are going to touch on today also. But during this time, the first months after the Hijrah, remember, in Makkah they could not pray openly. Remember that, Abdul Hayy? They could not pray openly. Everybody has to hide. So now, they have peace. Now they have their own masjid. So how do we tell people it's the time to pray? Of course, guys, they didn't have watches and clocks yet, let alone smartphones. Or Adhan app. Don't tell me, oh, Adhan app. No, it didn't exist yet. So how are we going to inform people it's time to pray? Number one, we have to understand Al-Adhan is one of the great signposts, Sha'ira, one of the great symbols of Islam. Adhan is one of the great symbols and signposts of Islam. It is not allowed for the Muslims as a community to leave it. And if the Muslims in a land, all of them don't call the Adhan, then all of them are sinning. At least one person, one masjid has to call the Adhan. It's fardu kifaya. And if each masjid called the Adhan, that is even good. Now, of course, we're talking a typical situation where the Muslims have the freedom to do that. Sadly, we live in lands where we cannot call the Adhan outwardly. It is a sad thing. And anyone who lives or spends time in a place where the adhan is called outwardly, and then comes back after his short visit, comes back to Canada, his iman goes down right away. And all of us know the stories of people who became Muslim just by hearing the adhan, right or wrong. So the adhan is a great sign from the signposts of Islam. To the point that, as we're going to see later on, when the Prophet ﷺ would go to fight a people, usually he would camp outside that city and wait for morning fajr. He would never attack at night. And he would not attack until he would say to his companions, listen, did you hear the adhan? If they hear the adhan in that land, they will never attack that land. Because either those people are all Muslims or there are Muslims in them. Imagine, to that point. So, the adhan, it was legislated during this time. All of us know the adhan. What does adhan mean actually? The word itself. What does it mean, Abdul Hayy?
Comes from adhanan.
Adhana, fi'l madi, faiza, my Arabic students. What does adhana mean? It is to let know, it is to inform, right? It is to inform. Allah says in Surah At-Tawbah, وَأَذَانٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. And then an announcement from Allah and His Messenger, إِلَى النَّاسِ, to the people, أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَوْمَ الْحَجِّ الْأَكْبَرِ. So adhan is an announcement. And as we know what it's an announcement for, it's an announcement for the prayer, that the time of the prayer has come in. That is what the adhan is. The adhan is called the adhan. Tayyib. Before we discuss the content of the adhan, let us see how the adhan, it was legislated. In the two Sahihs of Bukhari and Muslim, the hadith of Abdullah bin Umar, he says, كان المسلمون حين قدموا المدينة يجتمعون فتحينون الصلاة ليس ينادى لها. The Muslims, when they came to Medina, now they have the masjid, their own masjid, they can come and pray openly, nobody's going to bother them. They had to tell each other, oh, it's adhan time, it's salah time, let's go. There was no system. فتكلموا يوما في ذلك فقال بعضهم اتخذوا ناقوسا مثل ناقوس النصارى. So one of the days they had a discussion. They said, this is not going to work. You know? So what do we do to announce that it's time to pray? They said, let's take the bell, like the bell of the Nasara. You know the church bells? Yeah. When they ring that bell, it's time to go to church. Right? وقال بعضهم, and some of them said, بل بوقا مثل بوق اليهود. Rather, let's take a horn. You know a horn, which they blow into a horn. The Jews, they do that. They blow into the horn. And that's an announcement, it's time to worship. But of course, both of these are not very good suggestions, because the Muslim in his religion is commanded to not imitate the worship of those who are not Muslim. In the religion. Don't say, oh, why are we wearing socks and jackets? They're not Muslim. That's for everybody. In the religion. Right? So both of those suggestions were not very good suggestions. The bell and or the horn. And this used to bother the Prophet ﷺ. Some of them say, well, let's have a flag on top of the masjid. When it's time of salah, we'll raise the flag, and then everyone can see it. But then of course this is not very practical, because now I have to come out of my house and look, is the flag up or not? Right? So what happened? This is what happened. There's a Sahabi, all of us, we have to know him, because again, he is tied to the adhan. His name is Abdullah ibn Zayd al-Ansari. So he's from the people of Medina. Abdullah ibn Zayd al-Ansari. He says, بَيْنَ أَنَا نَائِمٌ. When I was asleep, he saw in his dream. إذ طاف بي من الليل طائف رجل عليه ثوبان أخضران وفي يده ناقوس يحمله. He said, while I was asleep, I saw a man wearing two green garments. Meaning the top garment and the bottom garment was green. And he had in his hand a bell. He had a bell with him. فقلت, so I said, Ya Abdullah, أتبيع الناقوس, are you selling this bell? قال, the man replied, وما تصنع به, what are you going to do about it? قلت, he says, أدعو إلى الصلاة, I'm going to use it to call people to the salah. قال, and the man said to me, أفلا أدلك على خير من ذلك, should I not tell you something better than the ringing of the bell? قلت بلى, I said, of course. قال, he said to me, تقول, you should say, الله أكبر, الله أكبر, الله أكبر, الله أكبر, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله, أشهد أن محمد رسول الله, أشهد أن محمد رسول الله, حي على الصلاة, حي على الصلاة, حي على الفلاح, حي على الفلاح, الله أكبر, الله أكبر, لا إله إلا الله. ثم استأخر غير بعيد, and then this man, he left to a distance. ثم قال, then he said to me, تقول إذا قامت الصلاة, when it's time to pray you should say these words now. Now this is the iqamah as we know it. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله, أشهد أن محمد رسول الله, حي على الصلاة, حي على الفلاح, قد قامت الصلاة, قد قامت الصلاة, الله أكبر, الله أكبر, لا إله إلا الله. فلما أصبحت, when I woke up that morning, أتيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, I went to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, and I told him about my dream. فقال, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said to him, إنها لرؤيا حق إن شاء الله. This is a true dream. This is a true dream. قم, stand up. فألق على بلال ما رأيت. Teach Bilal what you heard. فليؤذن, then let him announce. فإنه أندى صوتا منك, أي أعلى وأحسن, because he has a better voice than you and his voice is higher, is louder. طيب. So he brought Bilal, Abdullah bin Zayd, and he taught him those words which are today the words of the adhan. So Bilal, he got up and he was practicing, he was calling the adhan. While he was doing that, Umar radiallahu anhu, he heard that. This is now another hadith. That hadith is in Bukhari and Muslim, it's ended. When he was doing that, Umar, he heard that. And he said, what is this? They said, these are the words now of the adhan. The Prophet ﷺ told Bilal to call the adhan. This is the adhan now. The announcement to prayer. And Umar, he said, I saw or I heard these same words in my dream last night. And when he went to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, both your dreams were true. So this is how the adhan was institutionalized, as we say. This was how the adhan was prescribed on the believers. إِنَّهَا لَرُؤْيَا حَقٌّ. This is a true dream. Now someone might say today, oh, so if I see a dream and it's true, I think it's true. Today, let's say you go to bed, Saturday night, you wake up tomorrow, you come and say, Shaykh, I saw in my dream, I was told by a man with a very beautiful face and a nice beard, with green shining clothes. He said that, I can now pray Isha just 2 rak'ahs. Because I live in Canada and it's now longer days, short nights, Fajr is becoming early. The man, he looked like probably an angel or a prophet. He said, I can pray Isha 2 rak'ahs instead of 4. What do we say? Do we say that's a true dream?
That's a shaitan.
That's a shaitan in green clothes. Very good. Yes. Why? Because tashri', halal, haram, do, don't do, it's complete. And that was the job of the Prophet ﷺ. Us for now, Islam is complete. You cannot bring something new. But for them, he ﷺ, and as we know, when he said this is the truth, it's not from him. That's from Allah. Allah is telling him this is the truth. This is the adhan for you now. Because the true dream is part of reality. That is why the Prophet ﷺ, I've said this a few times, it was his sunnah. After they prayed Fajr, every day, after they do the adhkar, he would ask them, who saw a dream last night? And if it was a good dream, he would interpret it for them. Nightmares, bad dreams, you don't talk about them, you leave them alone. They won't bother you. Tayyib? So it was from the ru'ya, the dream of Abdullah ibn Zayd al-Ansari, corroborated by the dream of Umar. And that is how the adhan was institutionalized, as we say. And when Umar, he went and told the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ said, فَلِلَّهِ الْحَمْدِ, all perfect praise belongs to Allah. Now, Al-Imam Al-Qurtubi rahimahullah, he says, the adhan, even though it has very few words, it comprises all of the aqeedah, the belief of a Muslim, or most of it. It starts with declaring the rububiyyah, the lordship, the greatness of Allah. Allahu Akbar, 4 times. And then it goes ahead to declare the ubudiyyah of Allah, that none deserves to be worshipped except Him. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. And then it goes ahead to declare that Muhammad is a true message and whatever he brings we have to follow. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And then it goes on to call you to success. Hayya ala salati, hayya ala salati, hayya ala al-falah, hayya ala al-falah. So, yarhamkallah, even with the few words it contains, it has a great portion of the belief of a Muslim. The greatness of Allah, the oneness of Allah, the message or the messengership of our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then it tells you that salah, the prayer, it is success. It is success. Then they discussed, they said, some of the things now we learn from this hadith. Abdullah bin Zayd al-Ansari, he saw the dream. When he came and told the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ said what? Go and teach Bilal. And then he gave him the reason. فَإِنَّهُ أَنْدَى, because his voice is louder and more beautiful. Which shows you that the person who calls the adhan should be the person who has a louder voice. They didn't have microphones, obviously. Right? And a more beautiful voice. To the point that, this is just a side note, the Shafi'i scholars, remember we said yesterday the madhab fiqh is difficult always. They always bring these issues. In the Shafi'i school, they say, we have someone, he has a beautiful voice, loud voice, but he says he wants to be paid for the adhan. It's not free. And if someone, he is not like him in his voice, and he wants to do it for free, which one should we choose? Al-Imam al-Nawawi says there's both opinions go in the Shafi'i madhab, but the better opinion in the madhab is the first one. Even though we have to pay him, he has the better voice, pay him. Because that's the purpose of the adhan. To make it beautiful and louder. Because the goal of the adhan is what? To call people. And that is why it's done outside. The adhan is to be done outside, and better on a higher place. That's why they used to do it on the roof of the masjid. Because then the voice will travel further. Do you get it? That is the adhan. So it's supposed to be louder, with a more beautiful voice, and there has to be what we call tartil. You elongate it. Because the goal is for everybody to hear and to come to the masjid. We're in the iqamah now. We are in the masjid, it's just time to pray. Number one, it has shorter words. You don't say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. You just say twice. And you don't say Hayya ala salah 2 times, it's just once. Hayya ala al-falah, just one. Hayya ala al-falah, 1 time. And then you add قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةِ. The salah now is being established. The iqamah is not elongated. You don't call the iqamah like how you call the adhan. Some people do that, that's a mistake. The iqamah is just your normal voice, quickly the salah starts. You don't elongate it. So this is about the adhan. So this is the time the adhan was started. Now which brings us to the next side topic. So we have one muezzin here, and his name is Bilal ibn Rabah. And as you know, he was the main muezzin of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Muezzin is the person who calls the adhan. How many muezzinuna did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam have? How many? 2. Okay, Bilal and who?
He was not Muslim. He made adhan. There were 4 of them. So Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam heard him, and they went to them and said, "Start of the note." When that one made adhan, he said, "It's you," and he said, "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan rasulullah." I don't remember the name.
There is a story close to that with some different details though. We mentioned him before, guys. We mentioned him before. Yes. Very good. The man who came to talk to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet turned away from him. Abasa wa tawalla. The blind man. Abdullah ibn Maktum. Abdullah ibn Maktum. He was the other muezzin of the Prophet ﷺ. But Ibn Maktum, he had to be told, time is in, call the adhan, because he was blind. Right? Because he was blind. So one is Bilal, the other one is Abdullah ibn Maktum. Which shows you that in Islam, a physical handicap does not mean you are a less Muslim. And this is something we rarely talk about, sadly, in our communities. In fact, when the Prophet ﷺ used to travel sometimes, like he went for Badr, he went to Uhud, he put Ibn Maktum as the leader of Medina. He's the governor of Medina. Another one is a man by the name of Abu Mahdhura. Abu Mahdhura. That's his kunya, Abu Mahdhura. Abu Mahdhura al-Jumahi. And he is the one, after the Muslims, they repossessed, conquered Makkah, after later on we're going to see, the Prophet ﷺ put him in charge in giving the adhan in the haram, while the Prophet ﷺ was still in Medina. And then Umar also kept him there. Abu Mahdhura. That's the 3rd one. And the 4th one is Sa'd al-Qaradu. Sa'd al-Qarad. And Sa'd al-Qarad, he was the freed slave of Ammar ibn Yasir. He was the Mawla of Ammar ibn Yasir radiallahu anhum. Sa'd, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he wiped on his head and asked Allah to bless him, and he made him the muezzin of Quba. He made him the muezzin of Quba. So he was the muezzin of Quba, Sa'd al-Quradi, or al-Qarad. And when Bilal was not there, he would call the adhan in Medina also. Okay? And when Bilal, he left Medina during the time of Abu Bakr, radiallahu anhu, when Abu Bakr was the Khalifa, Sa'd became the muezzin of Masjid al-Nabawi. So, Because Bilal, he moved to Sham. As we know, many of the Sahaba, they moved to Sham, they went to Iraq to teach people the deen. So, who can tell me the names again? The 4 Muezzins of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Bilal ibn Rabah, Abdullah ibn Maktum, Abu Mahdura, and Sa'ad al-Qarad. Okay, Sa'ad al-Qarad. These are the 4 Muezzins of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What is the fadl of the adhan? How special is the adhan? The Prophet ﷺ, this is the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Abu Sa'id, he saw Abu Sa'sa'a, or ar-Rahmah ibn Abi Sa'sa'a. He loved to take his sheep and camels and go into the al-Badiya. What do you say Badiya in English? Go into the fields basically. He would leave the city and go with his animals by himself. You know? So Abu Sa'id said to him, إِنِّي أَرَاكَ تُحِبُّ الْغَنَمُ وَالْبَادِيَةِ, I see that you love to go into the countryside with your animals. فَإِذَا كُنْتَ فِي غَنَمِكَ أَوْ بَادِيَتِكَ, when you are by yourself with your animals in the countryside, فَأَذَّنْتَ بِالصَّلَاةِ فَارْفَعَ صَوْتَكَ بِالنِّدَاءِ, when it's time to pray, call the adhan loudly. فإنه لا يسمع مدى صوت المؤذن جن ولا إنس ولا شيء إلا شهد له يوم القيامة. Because nothing from the jinns or the humans or anything which exists hears the adhan being called by the person, except all of those things will be witnesses for you on the day of judgment. So even if you are by yourself in the countryside, call the adhan. Even if you're praying by yourself at home, call the adhan. Someone always asks, what about the woman? Can she call the adhan? At home, yes, why not? Call the adhan inside the house. If you're by yourself, you and your children, there's no man, call the adhan. Number 2, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, the shaitan, when the shaitan hears the adhan, he runs away. He cannot stand it. He cannot stand the adhan. And he makes sounds just not to hear the adhan. That is why if someone has jinn possession, if someone is possessed and want to do ruqya, exorcism as they call it in English, one of the first things you do is call the adhan. It's called the adhan. Now, Adhan app is not enough. No. Adhan app is just to tell you it's time for you to call the adhan. That is what the app is for. He's making adhan, it's recorded. It's not you making the adhan. Yes. Which brings us to another issue. I really want to go into now the fiqh of adhan. Okay, if you hear the adhan in the adhan app, we know it is from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. إذا سمعتم النداء فقولوا, when you hear the adhan, you should say just like he is saying, or just like he is saying. Sorry. If you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Do you do that with the adhan app? No.
We do.
You should not do that. No. That is only for a live adhan. Adhan which you hear right now, someone is calling it. The adhan app, it doesn't count, because I can play it right now. Right or wrong? Is it time for adhan? No, it's not. You don't respond to the adhan app. Unless it's live. If it's live, yes. Right now, then you respond to that. Also another thing which always comes about. I enter the masjid and I hear the Muezzin is calling the Adhan. Should I pray my tahiyatul masjid or respond to the Adhan first?
Respond to the Adhan, then pray everything.
Respond to the Adhan and then pray. That is true except for Jum'ah, on Friday. That is true for every other day. If you come in, the Mu'adhin is calling the Adhan of Asr, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Maghrib, Fajr, whatever it is. You should respond with the Mu'adhin, and then of course there's the dua after the Adhan, Allahumma rabba hadhi da'wati tamma salatil qaima, to the end. And then you should make dua, because that time dua is always accepted. Except Jum'ah. Because listening to the khutbah is more important than you responding to the adhan. So even if the adhan is called, because when the adhan is called right after the khatib starts the khutbah, right or wrong? So you should pray right away so you can listen to the khutbah. Because listening to the khutbah is wajib, it's a must. Responding to the adhan is not a must. So you don't leave what is wajib for what is mustahab, recommended. Okay? So Friday, when you come, you pray your tahiyatul masjid, even when the adhan is being called. Tayyib. The Prophet ﷺ, he said in the hadith reported by Abu Hurairah in Sahih al-Bukhari and Muslim, لو يعلم الناس ما في النداء والصف الأول ثم لم يجدوا إلا أن يستهموا عليه لاستهموا عليه. If only the people knew the excellence and the great reward which is in these two things. Number one, the first row. And number two, the excellence of calling the adhan. If only people knew the excellence of these two things, they would compete so much, to the point that everyone should want to do it, even if it means by drawing lots. You know, drawing lots and qur'ah. You say, I want to call the adhan, I want to call the adhan, I want to call the adhan. So we write our names on pieces of paper and then draw. That is how important and how great it is to call the adhan. Tayyib. And that is why Umar radiallahu anhu, he said, if it was okay for the Khalifa to be the Mu'adhin, I would be calling the adhan every day. If it was okay for the Khalifa, the leader of the Muslims, to call the adhan, I would have done it every day. Let's leave the question after. Tayyib. And that also means for the first row. You should compete to be in the first row. Because the reward of the first row is so great that people will draw lots if only they knew.
This is for boys, not for girls.
This is for boys and girls. The first row of the women is also best for the women. If the women, like we have here, you have a separate place for women, you should rush to be in the first row. The men should rush to be in the first row. The Prophet ﷺ said, لا يزال الناس يتأخرون حتى يؤخرهم الله. People, they just want to be sitting in the back. You continue to do that until the day of judgment, Allah will put you at the back. Yes. We should rush to be in the first row. So even if you reach there together and there's no space, we should do the qur'ah. Write our names on a piece of paper and draw. And this is the one issue the ulama, they say, there is no giving precedence to an elder, even if it's your father. If you can beat your father to the first row, you should. And don't give it to him when he comes late. Yes. This is one of the rare issues. They say you can beat your parent and compete with your parent. Questions at the end, sister. Actually, I was told questions tomorrow. Tayyib. So this is about the adhan. So this is the time. The first 3-4 months, the adhan started, and today all of us, we know the adhan. And it is so important, as we know, even though the hadith, some of the scholars say they're not sahih, that the first thing the Muslim child, when he or she is born, is what? We call the adhan, on his or her ear. The hadith, they're debatable. Number one, there's no hadith which says call the iqama on the left ear, for sure. The child is not about to pray. Adhan and then iqama, no. Okay? There's no iqama. And there's no hadith from the Prophet ﷺ which says right ear and left ear. But the Salaf, the Tabi'un, the Atba'u Tabi'un, they used to do that. They used to call adhan both in the right and the left ear. Both in the right and the left ear of the newborn. To show you how great this signpost, Sha'ir of Islam is. Tayyib, we are going to take a 5-minute break. Only 5 minutes. So exactly at 4 o'clock or 4:01 we're going to restart, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. From the other events which happened during this time, in the first 3, 4, 5 months of the Hijrah, the first year in Medina, as we know, as human beings, one of the most, if not the most important necessity we have is water. Human beings, we can't survive without water. So, what happened though, Medina, when the Muslims migrated there, they found that there was very scarce supply of drinkable water, like water which you can actually live on. There was one well which was called Ruma. Ruma. And this well, the well of Ruma, it was one of the very few sources of drinkable water in Medina. So when the Muslims, they migrated, they had a very difficult time just to get water to drink. And this well of Ruma, it belonged to a man from the tribe of Ghifar. And he used to sell the water. It's not free. He used to sell the water. He used to sell 1 bucket for a mud of food. A mud is 2 handfuls like that. So if you want a bucket of water, probably a mud of dates or barley or whatever it is. They didn't specify. Which is not easy actually, it's quite expensive. So obviously this was a hardship. As we know already, the Muhajirun, they were poor. They were poor. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said to this man, تَبِيعُونِهَا بِعَيْنٍ فِي الْجَنَّةِ. You'll sell it to me, this well, and Allah will give you a river in Jannah. But the man, he said, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, لَيْسَ لِي وَلَا لِعِيَالِ غَيْرُهَا. Me, I and my family, we don't have any other source of income except this. فَبَلَغَ ذَلِكَ عُثْمَانُ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُ. And this news reached Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu. Who was Uthman? One of the first people to accept Islam. Who was Uthman? The son-in-law, of the Prophet ﷺ, because he was married to who? Now, at this time, he was married to who? To Ruqayya. Ruqayya Kulthum. Who was the first wife of Uthman? Ruqayya. Tayyib. Who was Uthman? Everybody knew him for his haya, shyness. Everybody respected Uthman. He never drank alcohol or committed zina before Islam, let alone in Islam. So when this news reached Uthman, he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, O Messenger of Allah, if I buy it, do I get the same reward? A river in Jannah? And the Prophet ﷺ, he said yes. So Uthman radiallahu anhu, he went to the man. فاشتراها ب35,000 dirham. He bought it for 35,000 dirhams of silver. That's a lot of money. 35,000 pieces of silver. Then he went to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, do I get the same reward like him? And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, yes. So Uthman, he said, قَدْ جَعَلْتُهَا لِلْمُسْلِمِينَ. Then this wealth, from today, it belongs to the Muslims. It's not mine anymore. فَسَلَبَهَا أي أَوْقَفَهَا. He made it into what we call salb al-fiqh or waqf. In English, waqf, they call it, there's a word which starts with a B. No, it starts with an E.
Endowment?
An endowment. An endowment. What is waqf? It's very important to understand the concept of waqf. Even though in some riwayat it says the first man to keep waqf was Umar radiallahu anhu. But this narration shows it was Uthman. Waqf is when you give a charity. A property of yours, it's your property. But you say this is no longer mine. It is for the use of the Muslims. Okay, so I have, let's say this masjid, where it sits today. This masjid, it sits on a piece of land, right? The owner of this land, for example, it says, this land, 3-4 acres, whatever it is, I give it as waqf. So that any project which benefits the Muslims should be done on this land. So it doesn't belong to me anymore, and it doesn't belong to anybody. It's just used for the benefit of the Muslims. So we build a school, or we build a masjid, and that is his waqf. So they used to do waqf of a well, of water. They used to do waqf of a madrasa. Or some of them, they have huge companies. They said this company is waqf. Whatever comes, the income from this company, business, it all goes to the benefit of Muslims. And maybe sometimes you can specify, it should help this orphanage, or this masjid, or this shaykh. That is what waqf is called. It is a continuous charity. Tayyib, we're not going to talk about the ahkam al-waqf today though. So Uthman, he bought that well and he said, this belongs to the Muslims now. As it was said in Sahih al-Bukhari also, the Prophet ﷺ said, Man hafara rumata falahu al-jannah. Whoever makes this well or this river, this spring, for the Muslims, he'll have Jannah. And Uthman is the one who bought that. Uthman is the one who bought that well for the Muslims. And this is one of the so many things which Uthman, he did which nobody else did. It's one of the many things which Uthman, he did which many people could not do. Do you know, from the property of Uthman, it exists today in Medina? Millions of dollars today, and it still generates income. From what Uthman left, today it exists. Tayyib. So this was the story of Ruma. It happened around this time. Another event, and by the way guys, giving water is the best charity, in fact. The Prophet ﷺ, in the hadith of Sa'd bin Mu'adh, when he came and he said, my mother died. And I think if she was alive, she would have given her wasiyah. She would have willed something. أَفَأَتَصَدَّقُ عَنْهَا. Can I give charity for her? My mother just died. Those of you who your mothers have died or your fathers, or they are alive. The Prophet ﷺ said, Naam, yes, give charity for your mother. وَعَلَيْكَ بِالْمَاءِ. And water is the best charity. Dig a well somewhere, in Africa, in Asia, where people need water. That is the best charity you can give. Give it to Muslims, non-Muslims. Tayyib. I can tell you today, the Christian missionaries, they go to Africa and they do two simple things. They go into the village. The first thing they do is they dig a well and they give water for free. The second thing they do is they build a school and a church and they convert people to Christianity. It's not stories I'm telling you, I have seen this myself. Water, because now people don't have to walk 10 kilometers to get water. And after that, like we said yesterday, we human beings, we gravitate, we soften to the people who give us things, especially things we value, like water. They build a school with a church. And by the way, breakfast is free in that school. And I saw, they do this one trick also. In the school, there's a playroom. Again, this is Africa. A playroom, like the kids, what we call kids, children, they can go and play. And this is called the Jesus room. Yes, you might find it funny, but that is how the way Muslims leave their religion and become Christian. Free water, free breakfast for my children. What do you Muslims do for us? Yeah, it's wrong. You're not supposed to have that weak iman, but people who are poor and free education. There you go. I used to see this myself. And whenever I come back and tell people, and how much does it take for you to build a well or a school? Nothing yet. And now the Shia do the same thing also. Exactly same thing. Allah Musta'an. So Uthman radiallahu anhu, from his great sadaqat is the bi'r Ruma, the well of Ruma. And he gave it for the Muslims for free. They used to buy water, now it's free. From the things which happen around this time is ziyadatul salah. Ziyadatul salah. The salah was increased. What do you mean the salah was increased? I said we touched upon this. What do we mean about that?
There's 3 prescribed prayers before, right?
No. The prayers were prescribed 50, my friend. Imagine you had 50 prayers. That's Muslims of today. Allahu Akbar. Oh, Jazakallah khair. How do you know I like this?
You have wasta.
Jazakallah khair. Tayyib. Khamsuna salawat. Allahu Akbar. 50 prayers. Like right now we would have prayed 5 prayers in between these lectures. Right? We're still waiting for Asr. Allah cut it to 25, 20. We talked about Isra and Mi'raj. 5. There are 5, but there are 15 reward. لا يبدل القول لدي وما أنا بظلام للعبيد. I don't think we mentioned this actually, but we have to understand that the Salah, when it was prescribed on that day, Isra and Mi'raj, it was Fajr 2, Dhuhr 2, Asr 2, Maghrib 3, and Isha 2. All the Salahs were 2, except Maghrib was 3. That is how the Salah was prescribed for the Muslims. So in Makkah, those 2.5 years, and in the beginning, in Quba, until now, few months in Medina, they prayed 2 Fajr, 2 Dhuhr, 2 Asr, 3 Maghrib, 2 Isha. But now around these months, after a few months in Medina, the Salah was increased. Meaning, Dhuhr was made to 4, Asr was made to 4, and Isha was made to 4. And that is why the traveler, because he's in a hardship, he is brought back to the original ruling. He can pray Dhuhr, 2, if you are Musafir, traveler. You can pray Asr, 2. And you pray Isha, 2. So, this is reported in the Sahih of Imam Bukhari, the Hadith of Aisha, and the Musnad of Ahmad, and other books. She said, Aisha, فُرِضَتِ الصَّلَاةُ رَكَعَتَيْنِ ثُمَّ هَاجَرَ النَّبِيُّ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم فَفُرِضَتْ أَرْبَعًا وَتُرِكَتْ صَلَاةُ السَّفَرِ عَلَى الْأُولَى. The salah initially was 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2. Then when they migrated to Medina, the first few months, it was moved to 2, 4, 4, 3, 2. 3, 4, sorry. And for the traveler, he was given the excuse, because traveling is a hardship. As-safaru qit'atun min al-'adhab, as the Prophet ﷺ said. So this is the time the salah was increased. She said, Aisha also in the riwayah of Ahmad, كان أول ما افترض على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الصلاة ركعتان إلا المغرب فإنها كانت ثلاثة. When the salah was institutionalized, like we said, prescribed, it was 2, 2, except Maghrib it was 3. ثم تم الله الظهر والعصر والعشاء الآخرة أربعا في الحضر وأقر الصلاة على فرضها الأول في السفر. And then it was increased to 4, but the one who's a traveler can still pray the 4 into 2. So this was the time this happened. I want to ask a question. How many of us knew about this? How many of us actually know that the Muslims actually used to pray 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2? And then in Medina, it became only 1, 2. Young people, mashallah. That's the importance of learning the Seerah. If you only got this for this weekend, alhamdulillah. You know the history of Islam. So the salah was increased. These are some of the things which happened in the beginning days of Medina. Now we go back to the Prophet ﷺ and the situation in Medina. We saw how he signed the peace treaties, the covenants, the agreements. And we said the main goal behind that was what? To ensure peace and safety and security. Because 13 years they have been tortured, killed, persecuted, abused, violated, everything. To the point we saw in the 10th year, or the 8th year, sorry, they even refused to sell them food. The Muslims had to eat grass and leaves. Remember? So now the main thing they need is peace and security. Which I stressed on yesterday. Peace and security is one of the great ni'am, favors Allah gives people. That is why Allah reminded the Quraish of Makkah, I give you food and I give you security, so worship me alone. فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ الَّذِي أَطْعَمَهُم مِّن جُوعٍ وَآمَنَهُم مِّن خَوْفٍ. Like we said, even if you're a millionaire, billionaire, if there's no peace and security, you can't even go outside to buy bread. You can't go outside to work. You can't go to pray salah. Al-Amn is very important. So the Prophet ﷺ, that's the first thing he established in Medina. But that is in Medina. The outside threat, that's what we ended yesterday, it was still very much active. In fact, now the Quraysh, they were more angry that he and his companions, he managed to escape. And now they actually found a place to grow. They became more angry. So their threats and their activities, hostile activities against the Prophet ﷺ in Islam, they grew. So the Prophet ﷺ secured inside Medina, but just outside, it was still very, very hostile. So the Prophet ﷺ, he used to live in fear still. And his companions, they used to still live in fear. All of us know something called trauma. When you have been abused physically, morally, emotionally for all these years, 13 years, it doesn't go away in 1 month. So they were still in that state, the Muslims. So once the Prophet ﷺ, he moved to Medina, the tribe of Banu Salama, and they used to live in the outskirts of Medina. The Prophet ﷺ built his masjid. They wanted to leave their homes and come close to the Prophet ﷺ and come close to the Masjid. The tribe of Banu Salama. From the famous people we know from Banu Salama is Abdullah ibn Haram al-Ansari and his son Jabir ibn Abdullah. Abdullah bin Haram al-Ansari, the father of Jabir ibn Abdullah. Abdullah bin Haram, we talked about how he became Muslim in the Aqaba, Bay'atul Aqaba. And we talked about his son, Jabir, we talked about him a lot. Abdullah bin Haram is the one person who, when he died, Allah spoke to him and asked him, what do you want? And he said, I want to go back. That is who Allah, He talked about when He said what? وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَلَأَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ فَرِحِينَ بِمَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِ. That is Jabir's father, as we're going to see soon. This was his tribe, Banu Salama. So they wanted to leave their homes in the outskirts of Medina to come close to the Masjid and come close to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they informed him of that. The hadith reported by Muslim, by Jabir himself. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Ya Bani Salama, diyarakum tuktab atharukum. O Banu Salama, diyarakum, stay in your houses, wherever you are. Tuktab atharukum. Your effort, your footsteps of coming to the Masjid all the way, it is written by Allah. You don't have to move close. And they are the ones who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He spoke about them in Surah Yasin when Allah says, Inna nahnu nuhyi al-mawta wa naktubu ma qaddamu wa atharahum wa kulla shayin ahsanahu fi imamin mubin. Allah says, surely indeed we are the ones who shall resurrect the dead, and we write down the actions you do and your athar. The athar is the footsteps to the Masjid. As the Prophet ﷺ, he taught us, he said, when you make wudu in your house, every step you take walking to the Masjid, one sin is wiped out and one hasana, one good deed is written for you. And Allah raises you up with 1 degree. Every step you take.
Even if you are going with your car?
If you're going with your car, there's no steps. So what do you do with your car? You park at the end of the parking lot and then walk to the Masjid. In fact, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, that's why we can't be like them. We can't be like them. They understood this literally. This is how you do business with Allah. Many years after Anas bin Malik moved to Iraq, his companions, his students, they saw him. Whenever he used to walk to the Masjid, he walked with short steps. And they asked him, why do you walk like this? He said, because the more steps, the more the ajr. Yes. Not masha'Allah. They did business with Allah. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, that's why we can never be like them. So you drive in your car, park it at the end, and walk so you get more footsteps. So the Prophet ﷺ told Banu Salama, diyarakum, stay in your lands, stay in your homes, don't sell your homes. Tuktab atharukum, Allah will write every step you take. Every step you take, Allah writes a good deed, hasana. And 1 sin is forgiven. And Allah raises you up 1 darajah. That's why if you can walk, if your home is not very far, you should walk to the Masjid. Especially if the weather's good. Tayyib? Good. And also another reason why He did not tell them to leave is because they were Muslims, and that is the outskirts of Medina. At least if someone was going to attack, there's a group of Muslims there who can defend. So the Prophet ﷺ, at this time he still lived in fear. Now we'll go into a fiqh question. Does this mean if I have a masjid close to me, I should leave it and walk to a masjid which is farther away?
You turn around a bit. No.
The ulama of Islam, they said there's no problem with that. If what you want is the ajr, it's allowed. As long as of two conditions. Number one, that closed masjid should not be abandoned completely. So everyone is going to the farther masjid, and then this masjid, khalas, now is closed. No. And number two, they said, especially if the masjid near to you is of Ahl Bid'ah. So you go to a masjid of Ahl Sunnah which is farther away, then that is allowed with these two conditions. Tayyib. So this was when, we were saying that the Prophet ﷺ, he still lived under fear. Now we're going to read something to show us that I don't think he mentioned it here actually. He should have mentioned it. Actually, we'll read this after. Another instance to show that the Prophet ﷺ, he would never sleep. He would rarely sleep again because he was afraid. And his Sahaba was the same thing. In the hadith reported by Bukhari and Muslim from Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, Sahira Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam maqdamahu al-Madina. In the early days in Medina, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he could barely sleep. فقال, and one day he said, ليت رجلا صالحا من أصحابي يحرسني الليلة. I wish one of the righteous people of my companions will come and guard me, defend me tonight. Imagine. The Prophet ﷺ is saying to his wife Aisha, I wish one of the righteous followers of mine will come and protect me and defend me. So at least I can sleep. She said, Aisha, فَبَيْنَ نَحْنُ كَذَلِكَ, when we were in that situation, سَمِعْنَا خَشَةَ سِلَاحٍ, we heard the movement, the sound of weapons, ammunition. فَقَالَ صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said, مَنْ هَذَا, who's this? And the man outside, he said, Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, Ya Rasulullah, it is me, Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas radiallahu anhu. Again, one of the early Muslims, as we know, Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas radiallahu anhu. فقال له رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said to him, ما جاء بك, what made you come at this time in the night? فقال, and he said, سعد وقع في نفسي خوف على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فجئت أحرسه. Allah Akbar. I feared for you. In my soul something told me I fear for you, so I came to protect you. فدعا له رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, so the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم made dua for him, ثم نام, and then he slept. So you can imagine, they were in a state of fear. They were in a state of fear. Now, someone might say, oh, but this is the Prophet. Why is he afraid? Of course he's afraid. He's still a human being. Right? We talked about tawakkul a lot. The whole hijrah was about tawakkul, remember? He took how many measures and steps to protect himself. You depend on Allah, yes, your heart is with Allah. But you have to do the physical steps to reach your goal. He's human. He needs to be protected. At least he can sleep. Tayyib? So we learn from this hadith what? Number one, taking the measures, taking the sabab, the reasons to achieve your goals. Number two, that the followers should always defend their leader. The followers should always defend their leader. And number three, you always make dua for someone who does good for you. The Prophet ﷺ, he taught us, Man sana'a ilaykum ma'rufan fakafi'uhu. Anyone who does something good for you, gives you a favor, does a favor for you, you should do likewise for them. فَإِن لَمْ تَسْتَطِعْ, if you cannot, فَادْعُوا لَهُ, make dua for them until you feel this is enough now. And the best you can say for them, for someone who does good for them, for you, sorry, is to say, Jazakallahu khairan. May Allah reward with good. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever says that, فَقَدْ أَبْلَغَ فِي الشُّكْرِ. You have done the best giving back. Don't say Jazak. Someone say Jazak. JZK. No, don't do that stuff, JZK stuff. Jazakallahu khairan. May Allah reward with good.
Some people do say Jazakallah alf khair.
Jazakallah alf khair. Probably the Arabs, they do that. It's good, but the Prophet ﷺ said, Jazakallahu khairan. It's enough. Allah will give you million khairan, not just alf. And number 4, what we learn from this hadith, it's okay to praise a Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ said what? Later, rajulan salihan. I wish a righteous man. Rajulan salihan. It's okay to praise another Muslim, especially if it's not in front of them. Because like we said this here before. If you praise someone, it might affect his iman. So the Prophet ﷺ said, Rajulan salihan. Tayyib. So this continued. This continued until one time, this is in Bukhari and Muslim, the hadith. Another hadith in Sunan al-Tirmidhi, Aisha, she says, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يحرس. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, they used to protect him and defend him. حتى نزلت هذه الآية, until this verse was revealed. And this is the verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah, number 68. يا أيها النبي بلغ ما أنزل إليك من ربك وإن لم تفعل فما بلغت رسالته والله يعصمك من الناس. O Prophet, convey the message given to you from your Lord. And if you don't, then you have not conveyed the message. وَاللَّهُ يَعْصِمُكَ مِنَ النَّاسِ. And from today, Allah will protect you from the people. She says, Aisha, when that night, that verse was revealed, فَأَخْرَجَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم رَأْسَهُ فِي الْقُبَّةِ. The Prophet ﷺ, he took out his head and spoke to those who are defending him, protecting him at night. He said to them, Ya ayyuhan nas, O people, insarifu, go away. فَقَدْ عَصَمَنِيَ اللَّهُ, because from today Allah has protected me. That's it. And from that day, he did not need anyone to protect him. Because Allah had given him a promise from that day. And that is why some of the Sahaba, they said, from that day, we knew that he cannot be killed. Why? Because Allah said what? وَاللَّهُ يَعْصِمُكَ مِنَ النَّاسِ. Allah is going to protect you. Tayyib? So, they were living in a state of fear. They were living in a state of fear. And to show you that, the enmity continued from the Quraish. And the hostility was still alive. Even when the Muslims, they tried to go and visit Makkah, especially the Ansar. Obviously the Muhajirun, those who left Makkah, they cannot go back to Makkah. But the Ansar, they could go to Makkah. Even when they went to Makkah, they showed them hostility and enmity, hatred. Why? Because now they're Muslim. And now they're protecting their enemy. They're protecting the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims. So there's this story reported by Sa'd bin Mu'adh himself. And all of us know Sa'd bin Mu'adh by now. I told you these are the names you cannot forget. One of them is Sa'd bin Mu'adh. Sa'd bin Mu'adh, he was the chief of the Ansar. And we talked about his story, how he became Muslim, remember? How he became Muslim through Mus'ab bin Umair. Sa'd bin Mu'adh, it's reported by Imam Bukhari. The hadith of Abdullah bin Mas'ud, he said, Sa'd bin Mu'adh, he went to Makkah to do Umrah. He went to Makkah to do Umrah. When he reached there, he stayed at the house of Umayyah bin Khalaf. We know Umayyah bin Khalaf, one of the main criminals who used to torture the Muslims. Okay, but they used to respect Sa'ad because he's one of the chief of the Ansar. So he stayed in the house of Umayyah bin Khalaf. And they used to respect them specifically because whenever the Quraish of Makkah, they used to go to Sham to do business, رحلة الشتاء والصيف. They have to pass through Medina. So they had to keep good relationship with the people of Medina. Otherwise their businesses will collapse. So Umayyah bin Khalaf, whenever he would go to Sham to do business, he would stay in the house of Sa'ad in Medina. So Sa'ad said to Umayyah, why don't you look for a time for me, I can go and do tawaf and do my umrah. Because he knows he's a Muslim, so he can't just go. So Umayyah, he looked for a time and he chose midday. Now midday in Makkah, it's not just hot.
Boiling.
It's boiling. It's boiling. Tayyib? So Sa'ad, he went during that time and he started making tawaf. Because most people are at home now, hiding from the heat. While he was doing tawaf, Abu Jahl, the criminal, he said, who's that doing tawaf? And Sa'ad, because Sa'ad is a chief and he was a warrior, he was a great, he's not afraid. He said, Ana Sa'ad, it's me Sa'ad. Abu Jahl said to him, you are making tawaf secure and peacefully like this? Will you have given refuge to Muhammad and those who changed their religion? And Sa'ad said yes. And they started to trade words. They traded words. They abused each other. Until Sa'ad said to him, Wallahi, if you stop me from doing tawaf, I will stop you from something greater to you than this. I will stop your caravans which go to trade to Sham. When Abu Jahl had that, he had to keep quiet. Because that trade was more important for them than the tawaf anyways. But this shows you that they never quieted their hate, their enmity, their hostility. It was still burning. Even for those who came to Makkah, even for the chiefs like Sa'ad bin Mu'adh radiallahu anhu. When he was doing this arguing with Abu Jahl, Umayyah bin Khalaf, of course, is still on the religion of Abu Jahl, they're all criminals. He said to Sa'ad, you're arguing with Abu Jahl? You're arguing with Abu Jahl, he's like our chief. Sa'ad became angry on his host, Umayyah bin Khalaf. And he said to him, you are defending him? Wallahi, I heard the Prophet ﷺ saying, you will be killed one day. When Umayyah bin Khalaf, he heard that, he was scared. He said that? He said, yes, he said that. He said, because you know Muhammad, he never lies. They knew him. They knew him. And of course, Umayyah bin Khalaf, as we're going to see soon, today or tomorrow, is going to be killed in the battle of Badr. Tayyib? So this shows you, number one, what do we learn from this hadith or this event? The main point, their enmity, their hostility never ended. Number two, we saw the strength of Sa'ad bin Mu'adh. The strength of Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh. Number three, that the Prophet ﷺ, he allowed his companions to go and do Umrah. They could still go and do Umrah as long as they were safe. And number four, one of the miracles of the Prophet ﷺ. And what is that miracle? The prophecy that Umayyah bin Khalaf is going to be killed. Like we said, this hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari. The Muslims were scared also because the threat was not only from Quraish in Makkah. The threat was also from the Bedouin tribes. The tribes which lay between Makkah and Medina, just outside of Medina. Some of those Arab tribes, they allied with the Quraysh. So the Muslims were scared of them also. And the Muslims were scared that the mushrik of Medina, they could betray them. And the Muslims were scared that the Jews of Medina, they could betray them. So it was a time of internal peace, but also external fear. And that is why at this point the Muslims were now allowed, after 14 years, to pick up arms, ammunition, and go to war. Now at this point, they were allowed to do so. We'll discuss that after a short break, inshallah. 5-minute break and then we'll come back, inshallah.